California produces more cannabis than any other state and was the first to allow legal cannabis production for medical purposes. The passage of Proposition 64 in 2016 made cannabis production and consumption legal for adult recreational use starting in 2018. The Cannabis Research Center at UC Berkeley was founded in 2018 as recreational cannabis became legal. We have been studying cannabis policy, cannabis-producing communities, and the environment ever since. We have summarized basic facts around cannabis agriculture in California based on our team's research.
You can grow up to 6 plants indoors for personal use. That's legal statewide. Anything beyond that is regulated both at the state level and the local level. And that means that local governments have the ability to prohibit cultivation or allow it with conditions or with regulations. That can include outdoor grows for personal use, as well as commercial operations. Cannabis regulation, it's definitely more substantial than other agricultural crops. You don't need a permit to grow wheat in California. It's actually a lot more like how we regulate development and land use, building housing, building commercial businesses in the state, in which there's a long permitting process that local governments reserve the right to say no to any one project rather than saying you can do it in these places without getting prior approval. And as a result, the permitting process can be uncertain, it can be time-consuming, and it can be expensive. And that has been a major issue for getting cannabis cultivators, particularly cultivators who are operating before we legalized commercial growing in California in 2016 into the system. One thing we're noticing as we track changes in who's permitted and where they're growing is a transition for farms to be located in places that are more accessible, that are less concealed, as well as being larger farms, often associated with greenhouses, maybe greenhouses constructed for other agricultural activities originally. So in the prior system, you had a strong incentive to stay hidden, try not to be seen by the government. So you would grow in forests, on steep slopes, in remote locations. And that's different now. And so we're seeing cultivation taking off in different parts of the state on different kinds of landscapes. And that creates interesting challenges for compliance. If you're growing on steep slopes in remote places and forests, that creates real potential environmental impacts. And trying to think of ways that allow those farms and those farmers to continue operating while also managing those environmental impacts has some challenges, and that can take time and money to try and fix, often time and money that those cultivators may not have. And so it can be easier to start a new farm on a much larger plot that's flatter, it's better access to the road, it's got better access to water, it's easier to comply with the relevant rules. And that lends itself to investment by an outside corporation or new people coming into the industry. So there's 5,000 permitted farms statewide in California. And those are increasing all the time as additional farms go into the permitting process and are approved. But we think there's a lot of additional farms that are not permitted at all. So for instance, in Humboldt and Mendocino counties, where we've done our deepest research, we think there's over 10,000 unpermitted farms. We have a sense of unpermitted farm numbers in particular locations in the state that we have studied. And the places we have done that research are the counties where historically there was a lot of illegal cannabis cultivation before the state legalized commercial non-medical cannabis cultivation in 2016.